I want to encourage everyone to take one of these cards. It's for Partners in Shidduchim. It's a beautiful organization that I help a lot. I make videos for them as a volunteer. And what it is for is that your profile goes on there. You put up your profile with a picture. There'll be a request for PAL, your advocate, your personal advocate. You can put me down, Dr. Jack Cohen. It's just another opportunity to be viewed and that people should know about you. It's highly screened, so look out for riffraff and they make sure that they don't get on this, this database. So I really like this very much. I myself, I'm very active with it and using it when I try to make Shidduchim. So Partners in Shidduchim is a great opportunity. So please consider that. Okay, let's go. Sefer Bereshit is full of dreams. Abraham has a dream. Yosef has a dream. Yaakov has a dream. And now Paro in this week's Parasha has a dream.
I also had a dream.
Okay. Hopefully the dream will come true. Now, in this week's Parasha, we get an idea into the psyche of what Paro is all about. Paro has a dream, and he sees himself standing on top of the Nile River, which is fascinating. What was the Nile River to the Egyptians? Their God. Now take a look at Yaakov's dream. Yaakov is a couple of weeks ago. He's lying down and God's on top of him. To the Gentile, he's on top of his God, as if to say, I tell you what to do. So how dare you rebel against me and not feed us? Whereas Yaakov Avinu says, Hashem, you're on top of me. I answer to you. And that's the role of our lives as Jews. Who are we? And what's Hashem's role in our life? How do we touch base with Him? Last week, something fascinating took place in the Parashah. Yosef is thrown into a dungeon. It's not like a prison here in America where there's daf yomi classes and you can work out and there's television. Of course, even if you ask for a cell phone, I'm sure they'll give you one too. If you lived in Egypt then and they threw you into jail, you basically rotted to death. There was nothing left of you. There was no future for you. And here he's walking around happy. And because of his happiness, he was promoted to the warden, giving him the keys for everything. And one day he's walking around and he sees these two, the Sara Ofim and the Sara Mishkeh, the two cabinet ministers who had the dreams. And he says something fascinating to them. Lama hayom hapanim ra'im, he says to them. Why are your faces evil today? That's a very interesting term. Should have said, why are your faces atzuvim, depressed? But he uses interesting adjectives. Why is your faces ra'im, evil? To Yosef HaTzadik, there was no such thing as being depressed. It was against the law. How dare you walk around that way? Here's a person who exemplified joy. The Medrash says he jumped all the time. And because of his joy, that's how he got out. So I want to share a very interesting point and connect it with Hanukkah. There's a secular writer called Jim Collins. And he writes in his book, Good to Great, he interviewed a fellow named Jim Stockdale who was captured in the Vietnam War, and he was a prisoner for 8 years. And he wanted to ask him a question similar to Yosef HaTzadik. How did you make it alive? How were you able to get out with your mind sane? After 8 years of being in what they called the Hanoi Hilton, that was the Vietnamese, and they used to torture people all the time. As Collins tells the story, the secret to this guy's survival of brutal 8 years in prison was that he confronted the reality of his situation and never relinquished the belief in his freedom. He never gave up hope. He thought, one day I'm getting out of this Gehenna. And he says, I never doubted not only that I would get out, but I will prevail in the end and turn my experience into the defining event of my life. And finding these sources to succeed, even when all our resources are spent, is the defining character of Hanukkah. When you feel like, I don't have any more to go, I'm done, I'm spent, comes the miracle of Hanukkah, of the oil that just continues to burn, to tell us, you can do it. You have it within you. It's a very interesting message. Over the past 2 years, people feel depleted because of the corona. pandemic, our emotional resources through life's challenges feel consumed. Hanukkah is a reminder that even when you feel like you have nothing left in you, you can still shine. We can still shine. The belief in ourselves, and especially this guy Stockdale and in his future, is what gave him the strength to survive. And this is what we get from Hanukkah, the ability to push on. Let me just share an incredible story with you. It was Shabbos Hanukkah in Yerushalayim. And the fellow writes this story. He was putting the last touches to the menorah. It's Friday afternoon. Suddenly, he's on the 5th floor apartment in Yerushalayim. He hears a scream down below, in front of the building where a lot of the children are playing. He has this bad feeling, this is probably my daughter Esty. So he runs down the steps from the 5th to the 4th to the 3rd. Finally, he runs out the building. There's a bunch of kids gathering, congregating around the little child. He pushes through, and it's his daughter. She's screaming in hysterical pain, an 8-year-old girl. So they call Magen David Edom, like the Hatzalah, and they rush there, put her in the back, and there's an EMT who has an imaging device. He looks at her, and he says, split open elbow. He calls over to Hadassah and Kerem Hospital in Israel, and he says, get the trauma unit, she's got to go to orthopedic surgery. Now we're talking about an hour, maybe even less, before Shabbat and Hanukkah are coming in. So he gets there, and the trauma team is waiting. He calls his wife, he says, so much for making it home, I'm not going to make it home. It was a short procedure. They were able to finish it right before Shabbos, and they were able to do internal fixation. And they set her up in a room, they gave her some kids' books to read. They gave her a menorah to light, and now it's off to get to pray mincha in the famous shul that has the Mark Chagall windows. If you've been to Israel, it's a magnificent shul. The Mark Chagall, gorgeous windows. So he walks in there, and he's waiting for mincha to begin. The Gabbai of the shul comes in, and they're getting ready to start, and he starts to approach one person after the next. Sir, would you like to give some words of inspiration to inspire the crowd? It's Hanukkah. He asks one person after the next, after the next. No one says yes to him. Not one person. He walks over to this guy and says, would you like to inspire the crowd? No, not me, I'm not a public speaker. So the Gabbai just basically felt there was no one going to help him out. When suddenly, a big Hasidic guy comes through the doors. Gabbai approaches him, would you like to say a few words to inspire the crowd tonight? It's Hanukkah. He says, sure, let's pray mincha first. And he pray mincha, and the Belzer Chassid gets up. He goes, hospitals are very funny places. I want to ask you 2 questions. He says, the halacha is that the best place, according to the Shulchan Aruch, which is the code of law, to light the menorah, is not like what we have it over here. If you look in the Shulchan Aruch, it's really from 3 to 10 tefachim off the ground. It's about here, very low. Why would the Shulchan Aruch require us that the best place to light the menorah is that low? That's question number 1. Question number 2, he says, the Holy Bereshit brings up an interesting point. After the Hashmonaim went in there and vanquished the Greeks and cleaned out the Beit HaMikdash because it was polluted from, they had offered swine and pigs and everything, put Avodah Zarah in there, and they were able to find this last cruse of oil and they lit it, and it was the miracle. They didn't institute the holiday that year. They waited the whole year. Only the second year did the rabbis decide, let's make a Hanukkah. Why'd they wait? So these are the 2 questions that this man poses to the crowd in the shul, in the Hadassah hospital. Now he says something. Hospitals are very interesting places. Most of us are not here for good reasons. As we can look at the crowd, pretty somber bunch. Okay, there's a couple of guys in the crowd who just had a baby boy and a baby girl. Mazel tov. But like I said, it's not a fun place. Why am I here? And he tells the crowd, because my father is sitting upstairs right now in the operating theater. My father's a diabetic. And all the years that he had diabetes, he had it under control. But in the last couple of years, it started to ravage his body to the point where he has an infection in his foot, and the doctor said to save his life, we're amputating his foot. So my father is having his foot amputated right now. This is as his tears are coming down his face. And so I wanted to see how my father would react as they wheeled him into the operating room. How would he take this news that he's having his foot cut off? My father, a person who went through the Holocaust, and lost all his family, but came out of it with 100% emunah intact. This is what I heard my father say as I walked with him as they wheeled him into the OR. Thank you, Hashem. Thank you, Hashem, for all the years that I had my feet. This is what my father said. That I, who saw his entire family wiped out in Europe, in the Holocaust and the Gehinnom of Europe, got to come to Eretz Yisrael, raise a family of 10 kids, and I danced in all their weddings. Thank you, Hashem, for all the years I had my feet. Thank you, Hashem, for all the grandchildren that I had. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he says, I have no gripes against you whatsoever. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the theme of Hanukkah. It's about gratitude. It's about being thankful for what we have in our life. And so the rabbi says, I asked 2 questions. I'd like to answer them. Why is it that according to Shulchan Aruch, the halakha is we really should have them in order that low? And the answer is because there's a lot of darkness in the world. And Hanukkah comes at a time in the year where there's much more darkness than there is light. Our mission in this world is to spread the light when there's great darkness. And that's the message of Hanukkah. Scatter that light. And why did they wait until the 2nd year to institute the holiday? Because after they found the oil, they thought, you know what? We've eliminated this impurity from the world, this darkness of the Greeks. We're good to go. The following year, the darkness came back, and the rabbi said, you know what? We need a holiday. We need a holiday for the rest of eternity that can always remind us that there's light in the world, and we need to spread that light. So that's when they instituted the holiday of Hanukkah in the 2nd year. Gratitude is a core aspect of what it means to be Jewish. There's no limitations on gratitude. Let me give you some historical examples. Avraham kaved me'od, Avraham Avinu was very rich in cattle. And he proceeded in his travels. It's very fascinating. When he returned from Mitzrayim, he slept in the same hotels that he slept in when he went there. Now, he went down to Egypt, a poor man, Avraham. He didn't have much money. He came back fabulously wealthy. On the way, he slept in Motel 6. On the way back, he could have gone to the Hyatts. He could have gone to the Westin. No! I have to be makir tov. I have to show appreciation to the guys that I slept by on the way down, even though I have money now. But where's the gratitude? So Avraham Avinu made sure that on the way back from Mitzrayim, because Paro had given him all this wealth, I'm staying in the same place. That's one example of gratitude. Rav Yochanan says the following. The Gemara tells us, I'm Rabbi Yochanan, there are 3 keys that Hashem does not hand over to angels, that He maintains Himself. And they are the key to rain, the key to childbirth, and the key to Tichiyat HaMetim, revival of the dead. The rabbis tell us that while the keys were never given over to anyone, 2 people received the keys to Tichiyat HaMetim. And that is Eliyahu HaNavi and his understudy Elisha HaNavi. Why did these 2 people merit to get the keys to Tichiyat HaMetim, to the revival of the dead? And the answer they tell us is because both Eliyahu and Elisha expressed their debt of gratitude towards their hosts when they were hosted by several people. And when it was time for the Jewish people to fight against Midian, when Moshe Rabbeinu was leading them in the desert, Moshe Rabbeinu should have led the war against the Midianites. No, he sent Pinchas to do the job. Why? Because Moshe Rabbeinu ran away to Midian when Paro wanted his head. And he said, I can't fight. I have to show Hakarat Tov to that country. So I'm not leading the campaign. Pinchas, you go. I can't touch them. And is an expression of gratitude towards the people because they had hosted him. Hanukkah is a time for us to focus on gratitude. It's not enough to feel a sense of gratitude towards people who have been kind to us. We must communicate it regularly and have it in our daily vocabulary. That's very, very important. We have to realize that the holiday of Hanukkah teaches us that we'll be around forever as a nation. In spite of the times that it seems that we're being pushed and the world harassing us. I want to share a very interesting story with you. In the time of the Tsars in Russia, there were harsh edicts sometimes decreed against the Jews. Very harsh, sometimes threatening their lives. And one time, 2 rabbis decided they're going to go to the capital to talk to the Tsar to repeal those edicts, those gezerot. One was the one of the Lubavitcher Rebbes. His name was, interestingly, Menachem Mendel Schneerson, the Tzemach Tzedek. And one was a man called Rabbi Itzela Volozhin, Rabbi Chaim Volozhin's brother. They were so dangerous, these trips, that they used to take their burial shrouds with them because they had no idea if they would make it back alive. The Tsar could at any moment decide to just kill them and be done with them. So they got there, and they asked they got to St. Petersburg, they asked for a meeting with the Tsar, and they were granted. It was granted to them. And when they asked the Tsar, can you please repeal these edicts against the Jews? He said, I don't understand. Why is that so important? Listen to what he tells them. After all, we're talking about a nation that's useless to the world. Suddenly, Rabbi Itzela Volozhin starts to laugh. And the Tsar turns red. He says, what are you laughing about? He says, Your Highness, Your Majesty is surely aware of the Gentile prophet in the Bible called Bilam. Yes. When Bilam tried to curse the nation of Israel, he said something, and this is what he said. It will come in the future when it will be said about Yaakov and Israel, what has God made? And he explains to him, Your Majesty, the time in the future will come when people ask, why were the Jews created? They're unnecessary. And then he tells the Tsar, all my life I was concerned. I never heard such a prophecy. But now when you said it, I feel so much better. You asked the same question, why are the Jews here? They're not necessary. Because Your Majesty, the next pasuk, the next verse answers everything. When Bilam says, behold, the people will rise like a lion and like a lion cub. So I'm not worried. I'm sure we're going to be around forever because you said the magic question and the answer is obviously we're going to be around. The Tsar was so impressed with the answer that he repealed the decree. So we have to realize, as bad as it sometimes as it seems, and we seem like we're in a corner in life, the Gentile prophet himself tells us the Jews will be around forever. It's very interesting. There are a couple of words that are used that I want to point out in last week's Parsha and this week's Parsha. And that is, when it comes to Yaakov Avinu, sweating it out with Yosef gone for years, it says, Yamim Rabim, many days. At the same time, Tamar was waiting to get married as well. Yamim Rabim, many, many days. She had to wait because the two sons passed away. And we have to understand something. Yamim Rabim, waiting in life is not so bad. Waiting, Yamim Rabim, is power. If you want to see the light, the happy ending, whether it's Shalom Bayis or Parnasa or Shidduchim, you have to learn to wait sometimes. Sometimes waiting is not such a bad idea. Waiting means that we can develop patience. Because I want to read you something interesting. Why are so many young Jewish couples divorcing today? It all has to do with lack of patience. Number one, disposable society. Who fixes anything anymore? When I grew up, there was always a guy around the corner from the main street that fixed appliances. Go find me such a guy today. It doesn't exist. It breaks, you throw it in the garbage. Your cell phone, every 2 years, got to have a new one. Unfortunately, this psyche has sleeped into our mindset. So there's no waiting. Yaakov waited until Yosef came back into his life. Tamar waited. And waiting is a good thing. You develop your capacity. Reason number two. Why are so many young Jewish couples divorcing? Instant gratification. I'll give you an example. When I was a kid, and even until I was in my 20s and 30s, you took a roll of pictures, you sent in to the local pharmacy or the guy that did the developing. How long did you wait? A week. Sometimes 10 days to get the photos. Today, could you imagine not taking a picture on your cell phone and not being able to send it to your friend in Jerusalem or London and having it in 2 seconds? And if you don't get it, if someone doesn't answer you right away in the text, what's taking so long? This, unfortunately, and this mindset has creeped into our life. And that's creating tremendous havoc. Maybe I could share a story about waiting. Many years ago in Eretz Yisrael, a kala is being worked up for her gown. Her mother takes her to the fittings every couple of weeks. And it's coming now, advancing towards the day of the chasana, the chatana. As the seamstress is about to put the finishing touches to the dress, the mother walks in. She was a tough girl, woman. She says to the seamstress, I don't like it. What do you mean? I've been working on it for 6 months. This seamstress was a widow. No, I don't like it. Not good enough for me. I'm going to go now to Herzliya, to a top spot. Are you going to pay me? No, I'm not paying you. I don't care what you did. I don't like it. I'm not paying for it. The seamstress was in shock. So she calls the mother of the bride. She calls the sister of the mother of the bride, who was a riveting. She says, Riveting Tzviya, you know, I worked so hard on this dress. 6 months. I was looking forward to this parnasa for a long time. She doesn't want to pay me. What should I do? She calls her up. She says, you know what? The woman is an almana. Her sister's talking to her. And you have to take care of her. Don't you dare tell me what to do. I'm not paying for it. Okay. So they went to another house of couture and seamstress in Herzliya, top of the top, and they worked up another dress. And the kala, as the days were approaching towards her wedding, just is not happy. She has these visions of black angels dancing over her chuppah because of this poor almana who never got paid. And now the day comes, the big day, the wedding day, and everyone's fluttering around the kala. You have the hair lady and the makeup lady. You know, she's the woman of the hour. And there they are in the room next to the hall, in a magnificent white dress, and there's a black cup of coffee right there on the table. When suddenly, boom! All over the kala's dress, the black coffee. And the Rebbitzin, the aunt, says, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize it was there. The mother, who was her sister, the mother looks at her with eyes to kill. You did it by purpose. I know it because you're angry that I didn't pay the first seamstress. What are we going to do now? We have 500 people sitting in the hall right now. What are we going to do? I'll never forgive you for what you did. So she says, no problem. There's another dress on the other side of town. Let me call the seamstress. The first one. So they call up the seamstress. They run down there to get the dress. There's a delay in the wedding. They tell the crowd there was a problem with the dress. The word starts to filter through the crowd that what happened with the coffee cup. They come back with the dress. The kala puts it on. She feels so good. They go on with the wedding, but something happens after that night. The two sisters, the mother of the kala and her sister, stop talking. But not for a week, not for 6 months, not for a year, 5 years, 10 years, 30 years, no talking. And now the mother of the kala is an older woman living with her daughter, who was the kala. Now she's got children of her own, are getting married. So the kala, who's now a grandmother of her own, one day she's having coffee with her mother. She says, you know, Mom, you remember what happened in my wedding? And what happened with the Intivia? Yeah, she says, I'll never forgive her. I'll go to the grave, but I won't forgive her for what she did. So, Mommy, I have something to tell you. What? You want to know something? She says to her. She says to her, yeah, it was something very bad that happened that day. But Intivia didn't do it. What do you mean? She said she did it. Now, Mommy, I have to tell you something. A secret that I've held for you for many years. I did it. And when I did it, she looked at me and she said, shh. And she took the hit. Because she didn't want me to get into a fight with you. And all these years, every time I want to tell you the truth, she won't let me because she was afraid that I'll get into a fight with you. Finally, this year I asked her, do I have permission to tell my mother the truth? And she said yes. Patience. Years they waited, but not to disturb the relationship between a woman and her daughter. Amazing? This is the power of a Jewish woman. You know, I have the pleasure of teaching Sefer Shmuel in the morning in Brooklyn, one of many courses that I give in the morning. I saw something fascinating that we recently learned, and I wanted to share it with you. David HaMelech is running away from Shaul. Shaul is trying to kill him. He's a refugee on the run, David HaMelech. He had several times he could have killed Shaul. When Shaul went to the bathroom, and David HaMelech cut the hem off his clothing, and he showed him later. Another time, there was sleeping In a deep sleep, Shaul and his entire camp, David HaMelech was standing there with Avner. He says, you can kill him now. No, I should touch the Mashiach of God, the anointed one. No, I don't do such things. But I want to lead into another story. There's a fellow called Naval in Shmuel. Naval, we're told, is like his name, abomination. He was a wealthy guy, had a lot of money. And it was now the time to shear the sheep. Gizazeh Hatzon, right? It's a famous day when an owner of cattle and sheep shears his sheep and had a good year, he makes a huge seudah to celebrate. David HaMelech used to help this guy with regards to his sheep, gave protection to his shepherds. And David HaMelech had to care for 400 people. So they were hungry, and he knew that this guy was about to barbecue lots of cattle and sheep. So David HaMelech sends a group over to him and says, we need some food. Please provide us with some food. This Naval says, who are you from? We're from David Ben Isha. Who's this Ben Isha to tell me what to do? Like, have a nice life, I'm not giving you anything. And we're told that this Naval had a wife, Abigail, who was beautiful and smart. So the word gets back to David HaMelech that Naval doesn't want to give him any food. So David says, this kelev, this dog's going to talk to me this way, I'm going to go kill him right now. I'm out on the way. And so, even without cell phones, news travels fast in that era. So the word gets back to Abigail that David HaMelech is coming to deal with her husband and kill him, put him away. So she says, I got to do something about this. So she takes 10 donkeys, loads them up with all food, and she starts on the process to try to head off David. And they meet up. And this is what she says to him. Yasim Adoni Libol Ish HaBelial. David, she says, you're going to be great one day. Don't put your eyes on my husband who's a Ish Belial. Ish Belial means Belial. He has no fear of God, meaning he's a lowlife. My husband is a lowlife. Don't waste your time with him. One day you're going to be great. You're going to be king of Israel. And she's able to subdue his passions. And he says to her, I'm not going to touch him. And David Abigail, Baruch Hashem Elokei Israel, blessed are you, God of Israel, Asher shalachech hayom hazeh likrati, that he sent you to greet me, because I almost killed the man. But because of your foresight and your intelligent thinking, you stopped me from killing someone. This is the power of a Jewish woman. Her Bina Yisera is amazing. I often tell guys who come to me about business deals, what should I do? Should I take this guy as a partner or not? I said, I'm going to give you an easy solution. Invite him for dinner and have your wife watch him. Within 5 minutes, she'll tell you if he's the right guy or the wrong guy. That's the intelligence God gives women. Now, we did a little bit of that. Let's talk a little bit about Shidduchim. In 1964, Reb Zelik Bliskin says he read a poem in Hebrew that was written by Rabbi Yahu Dessler, one of the greatest minds in terms of Musar in the last 100 years. Michtav Eliyahu, the set of books that he wrote. And he writes like this, and here's an English translation. The past is only memories, the futures are only hopes. Focus now on the present, for that is where your life really is, and it consists only of tests. You have to understand what he's telling us here. Our lives are composed of a lot of tests. How will I react with this, and how will I react with that? And your job is not to lose focus and not get lost in the past of your life and get depressed about what you could have done and should have done. Focus on the present and how to address that. There's a woman named Gila Mandelson. Gila Mandelson was not religious. She's probably today one of the best dating coaches in Israel. Very interesting how she became religious. She was in college, she was offered a free trip to Israel, arrives in her jeans, and someone takes her to an Orthodox wedding. And he says, you see that? The Chatan and Kala, they never touched before. No, you're kidding, can't possibly be. Of course they touched. No, they never touched before. That got her interested in Judaism, and she became now the biggest guru in the world on Shemiyat Nigiyah. She writes the books on this. So anyway, she started dating a religious guy, and now it's time for her to be taken by her future Chatan to meet his Rosh Yeshiva. After more than enough dating, it was clear Avraham was today my husband. was going to propose. But he told me protocol requires that I have to take you to my Rosh Yeshiva to make sure that he likes you and he approves. I remember years ago, maybe 32 years ago, I took my wife to be, Bezat Hashem, to my Rabbi Victor Miller, and she was like shaking, he's a Gadol Hador. We tell her, calm down, relax, it's okay. She was 19 years old from yeshiva in Brooklyn called Shadei Torah, and but I mean, it made me feel good that my Rebbe approved. By the way, just put it out there. It's so important, girls, when you're going out, to see that the guy has a Rebbe. When he doesn't have a Rebbe, he doesn't have direction. And if there's going to be a problem in the marriage, God forbid, who are you going to turn to? I had a case from the Five Towns, a Moroccan girl. Came to me like devastated. She was married maybe 8 months, and she said to me, he went to the Mir Yeshiva, and he was used to learning a few hours a day. But when he came back to America, he got a job, and he continued the same way of learning 1 hour in the evening and 1 hour in the morning, which is very cool, very nice. But she says he stopped learning. It wasn't an hour anymore. It was now down to a half hour and 15 minutes. It wasn't going to shul anymore. It was learning in B'nai bedroom. And that's where he was davening also in Techapa, L-I-I-R, whatever it is. And she says, I'm so devastated. I said to her, she says, my marriage is over, right? I said, absolutely not. How do you say that? Does he have a Rebbe? I said, yeah. She says to me, yes. So call the Rebbe up. I'm sure he has a connection. She did. The Rebbe was in the Five Towns. He was able to solve the problem, get the guy back on his feet again. So it's very important that the boy should have a mentor, a Rebbe, someone that he... I'm dealing with a case right now, by the way. I have to share this interesting case with you. You heard Tzvi Kaplan? His brother sent me this case. He's a big Rav in Lakewood. Anyway, Ashkenaz boy, Ashkenaz girl, 25, 26. Boy made a lot of money, advanced, cash advance they call it? Yeah, I mean, the guy made a lot of money. He bought 5,000 square home in Toms River. Anyway, now he's feeling really good, driving a Lexus, driving a Land Rover, wearing a Rolex, and 10 months into the marriage, they have a child who's about less than a month old, and they're fighting like cats and dogs. The issue is over. She had a very successful business of her own in hair, styling wigs, etc. She made nice money for herself, and he wanted all the monies to be put into one common pool. And he's upset that she didn't hand over the money. So I had them in front of me. I said to him, why are you so fixated about this whole money thing? And I read them something from Victor Miller. He says, some of the people out there, they learn Gemara. So it says, what a wife acquires, you acquire, it's your money. Bug off, man. It's her money. Leave it alone. She wants to buy herself a Fendi or a Gucci, whatever it is. Let her do what she wants to do. But now, the marriage is being threatened over this issue right now. And he doesn't want to let go. I've had like 4 sessions a week with this couple. To the point where it's, emergency situation. I'm working with the rabbi, the rav of the boy. This is what happens when there's, and I'm going to deal with it maybe a little bit later. I want to examine an article that Manis Friedman wrote recently. And he asked them, he's a guy who's involved in many, many cases of dating and shalom. What's going on today? Selfishness. Everyone's out for me. What happened to the team? What happened to Ishto Gufo? His wife is like his body. Why are people worried about themselves so much today? And he says, in doing many consultations, and I see it as well, it's all about me. And here's another thing that I'm seeing. You can't give anybody tochicha anymore today. You can't tell anyone, try this or try that, because people's egos are so fragile today. But there's only one way to grow, is to be open-minded. How can I improve my game? How can I become better at something? So let's get back to her story. So she's brought to her fiancé-to-be's Rav, who's the Rosh Yeshiva in Ish Torah in Israel. And he asks her where she's from. And she answers. And she says to herself, I'm doing so well. I can't handle any questions. So he looks at her and he says, so Gila, tell me something. What's your definition of love? And I got to read you the answer. She says, I was doing so well, I forget how I can handle this. Love, I began confidently, is the feeling you have when you feel like you have that feeling. She knew she blew it. He was looking at her like, what? What does that mean? And she says, you know what? I can't believe I was so embarrassed. Here I'm about to get engaged, and I can't even define what love is. And I said, that's ridiculous, because if I can't define it, that means I can't actively pursue it, and I'm sure we can pursue love. First of all, she says, it can't be a feeling, because feelings come and feelings go. If it's about a feeling, guess what? Feelings can draw you to a lousy human being, a grown-up baby, an abuser, or someone totally wrong for you. And she says, I came to the conclusion of what love is. Love is not more just about a feeling. Love is about her or his character and values. Ooh, that's a big one. Hashkafa. Are we going in the same direction? Love is not about two people looking at each other, man and woman, starry-eyed. Love is, are we looking out in yonder in the same way? Comes to the word mishkafayim, glasses. Which way are you looking? What do you want out of life? What are your goals? What are your dreams? What are your values? She says like this, it's important, is he or she caring? Is he or she loyal? Is he or she patient, responsible, honest, willing to work things out, morally unshakable? That's what I'm looking for. That's what love is. And she says, may I define for you what love is based on what the Rosh Hashiva told me that day. And she says, love is the attachment that results from deeply appreciating someone else's goodness. Such good people. He's such a great guy. She's so thoughtful. You appreciate their good qualities. Such a love won't break easily. Such a love, such a relationship will endure struggles but survive. Because it's based on yesodot, rock solid values. That's what love is. And unfortunately, we live in a world where, especially as I play the role of shadchan also, I happen to sit with many people or Zoom with many people, and I may make a suggestion. I'll send over the resume and the picture. Not my look. Not my look. Not my look. Everything today is about not my look. Not my look, not my look. So I decided, you know what? Forget about Chochmas HaTorah. I want to hear what John Gray has to say about this. Here's the guru, the Gentile guru. Men are from the moon, women are from Venus. Let's see what he has to say. So I looked it up. And he writes the following. This is like Musar Haskell to me and to everyone out there. This is like, we need to hear this. Physical chemistry alone is very short-lived. You hear this? This is from the guy who was the psychologist to Hollywood and the stars. A man can easily be turned on by a woman who promises gratification. I was amazed as a counselor to discover a striking pattern. Quite often women who are extremely attractive, who look like models and movie stars, and in some cases were, would share the same complaint. Their husbands were not attracted to them. I was dumbfounded. I couldn't imagine any man not being attracted to these women. And I started to do some work to think about it. Why is this happening? And he comes to his conclusion. When physical chemistry is not backed up by chemistry in the mind, chemistry in the heart, and chemistry in the soul, it just dies. It doesn't grow. You want proof? Go to your nearest supermarket, check out the latest National Enquirer 90-day divorce out of Hollywood. They're a dime a dozen. Mr. Beautiful to Miss Gorgeous, right? Once the pleasures and the passions of the body are experienced without passions of the mind and passions of the heart and passions of the soul, the chemistry just dissipates. Physical attraction is important. I don't tell anyone to dismiss it. But it can only be sustained for a lifetime when it springs from chemistry of the mind, chemistry of the heart, and chemistry of the soul. And this is where we're coming up short today. We're putting such an emphasis on what Western culture is teaching us, or our cell phones make us excited about. that we're wasting years of our life. It's a shame. I was in Baltimore last week for a Shabbaton. We had maybe 300 people in the Doubletree Hilton. How many wonderful people, wonderful, 35, 36, 40, 38, 45, years gone by because they put emphasis on the wrong things. Here's what I should be worried about. Are they humble? Are they idealistic? Do they have simchat chaim? Optimistic outlook? Does he have a parnasa? That's important. Selfless is another one. Self-sacrifice, misrat nefesh. Will they go out of their way? I have a case right now. He doesn't want to go to his wife's side. They're married 2 years. No, don't make me go. I don't want to go there. The husband to the wife. I don't want to go to your mother's house for Shabbat. I said, come on, everyone does it. Common courtesy, be mevater for her. No, I don't want to go. I don't like her mother. All you're doing is you're setting yourself up for serious problems. I'm telling this guy. Vatran, mevater, give to the other person. So important. Communication, that's another one. We have to build relationships through communication, which is what I do with a lot of people. I train a lot of people in this area. How do you understand what you need in life? So you have to have a little think with yourself. Who am I? What are my talents? What are my character strengths? What do I need to make me happy? And you need to cultivate a top 10 list. If you need help, reach out to me. I'd be happy to help you. But here's the thing. You got to remove from the top 10 list things like rich, classy, stylish, tall, worldly, owns a certain type of car. I kid you not, I got a phone call from Great Neck. Rabbi, I only want to go out with someone who went to NYU. I said, what? This is a new one? Yeah, only NYU. I went to NYU. By the way, I'm an NYU graduate myself. But anyway, listen. What does that mean? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. How do you know who Bashert is? This is what I should be looking for, and I want to analyze a point that I'm very big on. The foundation of marriage has to do with the concept of mashpia and mekabel. The man must be the mashpia, and the woman is the mekabel. The man is the giver of warmth, of money, to fill her needs, and the woman is the mekabel. If the man is not the giver, it destroys the woman, who is the receiver. This is coming right out of an article that Manis Friedman gave in the Tu B'Av edition of Ami. And he writes a very interesting story. He says, a bacher, a young man in learning, came up to me and he says, he wants to propose but he's hesitating. I said to him, I know why you're hesitating. Is the girl smart? Yeah. She's good? Yeah. She's very capable, making a lot of money? Yeah. So why does she need you? How will you ever be the mashpia? So I tell girls who are professionals, RNs, PTs, lawyers, do me a favor. When you go out on a date, dial it down on your success. Dial it down because you're competing with the guy. How's he going to be able to give to you? Dial it down. It's very important. I had a girl, another great story. I'm preparing her for her dating resume, and I said, time to take a photo. I kid you not. She sends me a photo in her lab coat. Whoa! I said, I don't want to see a photo like that. I want makeup, jewelry, and a nice dress. The guy doesn't care if you're a doctor. What is that all about? You understand? So, here's another one. How do you define mashpia? Girls, listen, it's very important. How do you define mashpia? Responsibility. Does the guy take responsibility? That's the thing. A mashpia says, I see your need, I sense your need, and I will meet your need. A mashpia is not someone who gives the girl what he wants. Here, take this and take that. He senses, he understands the need of the woman, and he gives her what she needs. Rabbi, if someone asked you, the only way you would agree to a shidduch is if the man is in some way greater than the woman, not greater. It has to do whether she can rely on him and not the other way around. Even in Gashmiyut, every woman wants to marry someone who's taller than her. How do you help a couple internalize this concept and guide them to the correct mashpia mekabel relationship? I tell women that the worst thing they can tell their husband is, never mind, I did it myself. It's essentially saying to the guy, have a nice day, I don't need you. That's very important. And here's another thing. This one I should really say in LA, when I'm in LA. Yeah. Someone recently told me that he was almost ready to get engaged, but the girl lived somewhere else and he wasn't willing to move from there. I have about 60 or 70 LA clients that could be in that one. I told him to forget about it. She's already setting up rules. Everyone knows that the halakha is that you have to go to where the man's parnasah is. But here she's saying, I want it my way. He says, tell her, bye-bye. See you later. Very important. Dating at different levels of religious observance. I get this question a lot. Especially as people get older. As girls get older. And I often find that the girls are more religious than the guys in some markets. And out of desperation, they date guys that are not keeping Shabbat, not keeping Shabbos. It's an issue. Can that work? My answer is it's fraught with danger. First of all, you have competing concepts of how we're going to raise children. You have the TV on Shabbat. I'll give you a classic case. I have a couple in Las Vegas, both well-to-do, white-collar professionals, the husband and the wife. She's a Balat Tshuva. She walks 2.5 miles on Shabbat to shul. Our friend, the husband, is playing tennis. 10 to 11, he hops into his car to make the Kiddush in shul. He makes the Kiddush in shul. They're fighting like cats and dogs. To the point she asked me recently, I want him to move out. It's very difficult to have a home where we have discrepancies in religion. Ideally, I love it when the girls just drop more religious. Even a little bit more. But because the girl has tremendous influence on the home. But to have a big discrepancy between both can cause major crisis. And so it's not something that I would strongly recommend at all. Next, I want to raise the point. Can a person change? Marriage should be a union of two people learning to accept each other and adjust to different backgrounds. Many people want to be accepted for who they are, but have a problem accepting others and anything that they have wrong with them. They make excuses for themselves when it comes to their sloppiness, their lack of patience, but they're unwilling to tolerate and forgive the flaws of other people. You cannot change the other person in life. You can only change yourself and your reactions to how other people behave. You can only change your own actions, your own responses, and your own attitude. And if you work on yourself, hopefully it's going to have an effect on your partner. But you don't go into a relationship thinking, I'm going to convert him or her into what I want. Ze lo holech. This does not work. You continue to work on yourself. You improve your own game. You have to have your own self-growth. And you will see that the person that you're with is going to want to meet your standard. That's very important. That you could do.
Are there any exceptions to expecting someone to change in any way?
Meaning?
Like you can expect them to change this behavior trait or that character trait, or you just not?
I can answer you with a response to the question was asked by Talia Lopian, who was a Gadol Hador in Israel. He says, what you see is what you get.
Okay.
Yeah. So one of the big mistakes people make is they marry potential.
Right.
You don't marry potential. You have to see, sometimes they're not holding where you're holding, but you see signs that they're in the same direction. Like the girl will tell me he's a Baal Tshuva. Okay, is he learning? Does he go to shul? Does he have a Rebbe? I want to see seeds planted in the ground already. You're not going to sell me on your dreams. Because that's a huge risk. You know what they say? Getting married is easy. Getting out of a marriage could be hell. So, why would you want that? Make sure you have enough in terms of qualities, character, and you've discussed it with a mentor to ensure that that is what you need there in order to make that marriage go.
How you can tell people change?
Your job is not to worry about the future.
Like in terms of 20 years marriage, people change.
Yes.
So
The dating process is where you get to see if you have common hashkafa, you enjoy each other's company, you complement each other well, you speak about what you believe in, what your dreams are, what your values are all about, and you see if you get along. If she starts to disagree with you on many things, you have red flags.
let's say a Bachur Yeshiva
Ken?
that they get married is like 22, 23, is in Yeshiva. So it's in a place that is like boiling water. But later on in life, he goes up from Yeshiva and starts to work. So he's not staying at the same as the religious level at the workplace. So
But when he's going out, when he's in yeshiva and he's dating a girl, he's going to probably be dating a Beis Yaakov graduate
right.
on his level.
Okay.
So then when he goes into and he starts to work, her job is to keep him there. Right? Chokhmat isha banta beita. A wise woman maintains the home.
So it's not after 5 years, maybe after 10 years it goes out. So the people change.
Yes, but why are we looking at the bed?
Huh?
Why are we looking at the bed? If he went to yeshiva, he was giving good values. And anybody can go sour, has v'shalom, but the idea is, if I went to a good school, that means they taught me well. My rabbis, my professors, if you want to use secular, they taught me well. I have a good basis, I have a good foundation. Okay, now, I want to talk about self-esteem. That's very important. You must feel good about yourself in order to feel good about being with someone else. And it's important that we work on our own self-esteem. Because our perception of ourselves should not be dependent on what someone else tells me. I shouldn't have to live off other people's compliments to feel good. It's nice to get compliments, and I think it's important to get compliments and to show appreciation. But it's important that we feel good about ourselves.
What's the fine line difference between gaiva and self-esteem?
Gaiva, I'm the best. You know, no one compared to me. You got to see my bank statement.
That definitely
You know?
helps. It definitely helps.
Yeah.
Esteem.
Self-esteem, I think, you know, I can answer it with a pun that my friend Eli Mansour once said. You know, self-esteem is a rich guy who says,
Good question, though.
it's a very good question. A rich guy who says, no, I don't have any money. That's a liar. Self-esteem is, Baruch Hashem, I'm well-to-do, but God gave it to me. You understand? He sends it right back to where it comes from. That's good self-esteem. So one of the things about being in a relationship and being successful is to ensure that we work on ourselves and our self-esteem, and we can continue to make it better. We can become accomplished in something, whether it's work or an exercise or a hobby. That's very important. There's many things that all of us have within ourselves, and we have the ability to succeed in many things. We just have to tap into it. Remember, the right husband or wife will help you navigate your way through life. The wrong one will send you down a path you never wanted to travel. So you have to learn how to choose. I'm just going to give you some quick tidbits here. Search for someone who can be a friend, someone you can talk to, someone who listens, someone who understands, someone who values your opinion, someone you can trust, someone whose character you admire, and someone with a healthy self-esteem who respects your boundaries. Experience teaches us something very important. Common backgrounds leads to common expectations. Sure, we can marry out of our communities, but it's just going to add more stresses to daily living. Because when it's the same background ethnically, you know, the jokes, the food, the culture, it's just a lot easier. Some of the red flags to look out for. Is he or she extremely sensitive? Like emotionally needy? Look out for that. Does the person compliment or criticize a lot? That's why I tell people it's important to date, take your time, get to know the person. Eventually, even if they're faking you, they're going to break down through the cracks, and you're going to be able to see if they've been playing games. So take your time. Is the person inflexible? Does the person attempt to dominate you? Oh, I'll give you an example. This is amazing. I don't think it was fair, but I got a phone call from a guy in Lakewood on Tuesday, and he tells me the following. He's divorced, 38 years old, has 3 kids. And he went to Riverdale, followed by 5 years in Brisk, and now at BMG. I mean, that's heavy credentials. For anyone who doesn't know, that's the Harvards of Yeshivot. Anyway, came back, got married, the girl was, whatever, they didn't have good communication. And he's been more of a frum religious guy, so the girl that he's dating is a 32-year-old girl, never married, and she's got all the social media, Instagram, Facebook, okay. And she tells him, I'm not giving it up. I have to have my social media. So he says to her, okay, but is it possible not to be on it from 6 p.m. and on? And he has a good intention so that we can build the relationship. You know, one of the worst things we can do, get married, is be on our devices during dinner. It's terrible. So she sends word back to Shadchan, I don't want to go out with him anymore. He's dominating. He's telling me what to do already. So he says to me, what should I do? I said, she's not for you. She's already suspecting you. Now you have no shot. You walk into this marriage, you'll never be able to tell her what to do. So that's why it's important. Throw things off other people when you're not sure what to do. Get clarity, whether it's a Rav, a dating mentor, etc. That's very important. Again, do you enjoy each other's company? Look for a mature and responsible person. Watch out for avoidant behavior. After dating for a long time, he or she doesn't want to answer questions. Not about their family, not about their private things. They should be able to share with you very freely. If after dating for a long time, they're avoiding certain questions, that's a red flag. Be on the lookout for that. Look for someone who's good at little things, sensitivities. You walk into let's say it's the summer, and it's freezing because the waitress sticks you right under the air conditioning vent. Does he offer to change the table? Or does he let you sit there and freeze away? Understand? Yeah.
When you say take your time, what is considered a long enough dating period?
15 to 20 dates. Yeah. It really depends on your background. Remember, in the Orthodox world, we don't date with our hearts. We date with our minds. So you'll see, the more religious they are, like even if they're more yeshivish, a date is a treasure hunt. I have questions in my mind that I'm searching for clues, I'm searching for answers. So when I come into a date, I have an agenda for that night. I want to learn about you. Not, as opposed to the modern world, 6, 7, 8 months go by, they know nothing about each other. It's ridiculous. They spend months and months and months. What do you know about them? Nothing. But when we date in our world, we date with an idea that I'm going in tonight because I want to learn more about that person. So I'm going to ask a lot of questions. Don't make it like an interrogation, but ask questions. And I can help you there. I put a PDF together, 100 questions for dating. Just reach out to me or come after, get my card, and I'll send it to you on WhatsApp or email. But questions are critical to determining who that person is. Flush out that personality. Yes?
A question. So you're telling us a lot of the things we should keep in mind in terms of red flags and also good and don't.
Yeah.
But what's the balance? So let's say some of the examples you mentioned, that they might have avoidant behavior, but they are the type of person who will move when you're uncomfortable and make you feel comfortable and all these other good and don'ts. So when do you draw the line of what's something, they have red flags, but they also have all these other good and don'ts. How do you make that distinction?
It depends on what the problem is. It's a case-by-case thing. Avoidant behavior is, he asked them about medications, for example, after many dates, and he refuses to answer that question. That could be a problem. Because you need to know about if there's a medical history down the road. It really depends on what it is. Certain things you can let go, certain things not. I'll give you an example. I set up a Syrian woman who was about 68 years old with a guy out of Florida. And it was going well. When suddenly he told her, she was a office manager for an orthodontist. He said to her, when we get married, you should know, you'll be responsible for all your own expenses. She comes back to me, I said, what? What is that all about? He doesn't know anything about the ketuvah? Vani azun, vani eflach, I'm going to support. He tells her, I like to travel, so you're going to have to come up with your own tickets. I said, Helen, we're cutting this guy loose today. Goodbye. What does that mean? So, it's important. You got to, certain things you may be able to do on your own. Others, that's why, I don't mean to toot my horn, and I was an orthopedic surgeon. I always tell people what I made in the OR in 1 hour, I can make as a dating mentor in 4 months. But the reason why I do this is because Hashem sent me into this work. There's never been a greater need for people to be able to go to someone who knows this area and get some guidance. Because we have a lot of confusion today. We're like missiles, so many ideas are thrown at us, whether it's newspapers or our friends or cell phones or podcasts, etc. So you have to learn to be able to filter out MS from Sheker without wasting your time. It's unfortunate that I see so many people wasting years, months in unproductive relationships. Clueless, like the blind leading the blind. You need to have Da'at Torah involved in your life when it comes to dating. Let me just close with an interesting story, and then if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to take them. And that is, I saw, again, in this concept of women having that Bina Yisera, a guy in Israel started coughing up blood in the middle of the night. So his wife says to him, "Tzatzeh la'rofeh, call the doctor." So he calls him at 1 o'clock and he answers the call. It's 1 a.m. He tells him, "You know what? Yossi, talich the emergency room. Go to the emergency room." So they go to the emergency room and they're sitting there. And his wife does one of these moves on him. He says, that guy, he's pacing back and forth. There was someone pacing back and forth. The couple that I'm talking about is Dati, religious. And the other fellow was, bald, Hiloni, not religious. He says, he looks very troubled. So he looks at his wife and goes, "What do you think? We're in an emergency room." It's not a fun spot. Everyone's troubled there. No, he looks excessively troubled. Can you go over to him and ask him what's his problem? So he goes I'm uncomfortable. He walks up and goes, "My wife says you look very troubled. Is everything okay?" He looks at him, "No, it's not okay." "What's the problem?" And he tells him, "My son, he's 15 years old. He was mowing the lawn and he bent down to check what was going on with the motor. His 2 fingers got caught and they were cut off. We brought them in to the hospital in a ice bag." By the way, this happened to my daughter this year. We were in Tom's River for the summer, and one of my grandchildren closed the door on her. She's 7 years old. I found it. We brought it in an ice bag. There's a guy who's I forgot his name, a plastic surgeon, a frum guy in Lakewood, by the way. Hatzalah radioed him. Thank God he was there that week. He has an OR in his house. Took my daughter right into the OR. He sutured it up. He saved it. So anyway, so this fellow in the story says, we brought the 2 fingers in, and they told us, you have 2 alternatives. We could sew him up with 3 fingers, everything would be cool, or we can attempt to reattach the 2 fingers that were cut off, but there's a strong possibility the hand may be paralyzed. Sir, you have a half hour to give us an answer. He doesn't know what to do. So he says, I don't want to tell my wife, she's going to go crazy. I don't want to call her and tell her about it, I'm close. So the religious guy says, the famous guy, Elimelech Führer? You heard of him, right? He has an organization in Israel. The guy's a malach. He gets people doctors. He never went to college in his life. You can look at an MRI in 1 second and understand it. He's very famous in Israel. I got the name of his organization. He goes, this non-religious guy says, Ezer Mitzion, exactly. Famous guy. He says, yeah, I heard of him, but it takes months to get an appointment with him. And I have to make a decision now within a half hour. So the religious guy opens his cell phone, makes a call. another call, 5 calls later. It's 2:15 in the morning, and they have Rabbi Führer on the phone. And he says, okay, put the father on the phone. So he's talking to the father. He says, I'll call you right back. Give me 5 minutes. 5 minutes later, this Rabbi Führer calls back, and he goes, I want you to go to the admissions office and discharge your son right now. There's a surgeon waiting to do the surgery in a place called Asaf HaRofeh Hospital. Run! He's going to greet you in the ER. So the man says, he says, go discharge him now. So they discharged him, took the fingers with them in the ice. They went to Asaf HaRofeh Hospital. Meanwhile, the religious guy said, I never got the guy's number and name. I feel so bad. I want to know what happened. Never found out. 90 days later, he gets a call from the man and the father. He goes, can we come over? So he goes, maybe the surgery came out bad and he's going to come over and beat me up or something. They come over. 5 brand new S-Class Mercedes show up to this guy's house in Bnei Brak, right? And they get out, the father, the boy, the grandparents, the cousins, flowers, knock on the door, and he goes, and they hug. He says, Gideon, show him your hand. He can flex and extend. Everything worked out perfect. So he says, thank you so much. He says, you know what? I did a calculation. I'm covered with insurance for the surgery. If I wasn't covered, what would this have cost me? Came out to 120,000 shekels. Didi, if an envelope, so he says, he pulls out an envelope stuffed with cash. Here you go. Here's the money, 120,000 shekel. No, I'm not taking the money. It was a mitzvah. I can't take the money. They're fighting back and forth until he sees he's not going to be able. This guy's not taking the money.
The daughters and the son.
So anyway, they hug. They leave. This religious guy's son gets engaged, and he invites the boy and his father to the wedding. 6 months later, and they come to the wedding. And at the end of the wedding, he says, you don't want to take the money before. Now for the chasana, you have to take a gift. So he gives him an envelope. He stuffs it in his pocket, and they leave. At the end of the night, it's time to settle accounts. So he walks over to the photographer. Okay, where's the bill? Taken care of. Goes over to the band leader of the music. How much is it? Taken care of. Now it's time to settle the bill with the caterer. What's the bill? Taken care of. And he goes, my mechutin must have paid all the bills for me. It's not fair. I'll have to settle it with him later. He gets home and he opens the envelope. There was a nice gift for the chatan and kala. It was the guy and his son who came. He paid all the invoices. They came to visit him the day after the wedding. And the boy, he's 15 years old, he says, you know what, you saved my hand, I want to write something. He says, I, Gideon, promise that I'm going to put on tefillin every day. And he tells him, I didn't even put them on for my bar mitzvah. Nothing, 0. And he was like taken in shock. And he wrote it down, and he took the note. A year later, the boy wrote him a letter, he goes, I feel so bad. I put it on every day, but I missed 7 days. So he calls him up, and he speaks to the boy. What happened? He says, yeah, we went away for Pesach. I forgot to take my tefillin with me. He goes, it's okay. You don't put on tefillin for Pesach. You're good. Ladies and gentlemen, it all started because someone was waiting in a waiting room, the emergency room, the woman, and cared, and saw someone else was troubled. These are the values we want in ourselves. These are the values we want in our extended partner, in our spouse, Bezat Hashem. I want to wish everyone here, Hashem should give us light. The light of Hanukkah should illuminate our lives and our souls. Thank you so much for coming. And if there's anything I can do for you, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm happy to help you.